Today we have an incredibly special reading. I am a bygone coordinator for Poets in Pajamas. My name is Aslan, and I am here to host our amazing, wonderful coordinators, Thandiwe Adofo and Kyla-Yến when Giffin for their readings. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to get to know the people that are always trying to get to know everyone else. And I think it will be a wonderful night of poetry for here on and thereafter. Um, Couple things. If anyone would like copies of the poems for accessibility purposes, you can reach out to poetsinpajamas@gmail.com, and I am sure we will be able to accommodate that for you. We also have a transcript through Zoom now. Thank you, Zoom. Actually, a good addition. And if you are watching right now on the Facebook live stream, feel free to jump into the Zoom room so that you can communicate your adoration of the poet's poems to them themselves. You may also use the chat function to throw out any lines of poetry that really speak to your heart, and also to post questions that you have for the poets at the Q&A, which will be after both readings. If that is all for now and no one has any questions, we will go ahead and get started with Thandiwe Adofo, a writer and director. Thandiwe graduated with a BA in English and Creative Writing from Howard University. Thandiwe is a current co-coordinator for Poets in Pajamas in collaboration with Sundress Publications and writes monthly articles at 20 Something Files magazine. Their current publications include the Amistad, the Bellingham Review, the Woven Tale Press, and more. Thandiwe is also a 2025-2026 CUNY Writers Institute Fellow. They explore their passions for storytelling through visual narratives and creative writing while integrating the intersectionality of womanhood and blackness, tragedy, and trauma, overall examining the Black interior. Their work has been exhibited in residence at Momentum Berlin, Casa Uno, Creekside Arts, and more. Thandiwe.
Okay, thank you, Aslan. I am Thandiwe Adofo, writer, and as he said, a current fellow at CUNY Writers Institute. I'm primarily a fiction writer, as probably you guys know, but I've been working on two poetry collections currently. One is called Life Lessons, and the other is called Songs of the Blackbirds. I will start with life lessons and then slowly move towards Songs of the Blackbirds. I think you'll notice a shift in terms of what the context is. These poems come from moments where the body remembers before language does, through family, history, repetition. Yeah, I'll get started. This first poem is called Lemons with Salt. It's a prose piece published in the Woven Tale Press. It's a bit longer, so bear with me. When I was a young girl, of only a few years, I would get on the stepladder in my mother's kitchen, reach into the fridge. I would rifle through the drawers. They were both labeled with what they were, vegetables, fruit, and a little switch I would occasionally play with that controlled something that I never believed really worked. How could that little slide control the fruit? Truly. My mother, in her bouts of lazy depression, would place the fruits where the vegetables went and vegetables where the fruit went, and it didn't matter, but later it would when I was 15 and tired. When I went deep in the vegetable drawer behind rotting kale, the kale would rot, and so would she in her bed. There was a cross-stitched plastic bright yellow bag with 4 lemons stuffed inside. I picked one from the top, not caring to rewrap or tighten it with that little white holder they all have. Do they have them anymore? I grabbed a dull knife out of the wooden block that sat too far in the faux marble counter. Yes, this was a middle-class home. I placed lemon on the counter too. I cut it into 8 slices, straight on the counter, creating small slices into the counter that I would soon lie to my mother about. I sat at the wooden bench in my kitchen, a kitchen I can no longer remember. I sat and bit into a lemon slice, sucking the meat and juices out of it. Sometimes my lips would pucker with the thrill of sourness spilling into the back of my cheeks. Lemons eat me, eat juices, eat lemons, eat me. I did this again and again and again until my body had eaten all the lemons and my lips no longer puckered. The peels were left white like the holder, and the bag was left lonely in the back of the vegetable drawer. My mother asked me the next day where the lemons had gone. I lied my little ass off. Years later, when I was 22, no longer tired, and my mother and I hadn't spoken in some time, my grandmother and I sat at a Mexican restaurant in the sandy hills of some place, somewhere in California. The drive long, the sun hot, the buzzards made songs that I didn't know I couldn't recognize. When we ordered, she got something, and I got tacos. She plucked 5 lemons from the bar that held cilantro and onion and sauces that were bitter, but sweet and spicy. Mexican food was always better in California, she told me. She took 8 salt packets in a booth in like the kitchen that I can no longer can remember. She poured salt on top of the bright lemon slice and ate the meat in one bite. She did not pucker her lip face or purse her lips. She chewed and smiled at me. She ate 4 lemons with salt, poured salt on the fifth, and held the lemon slice out to me. The salt, it's not bitter, she said. The next poem is called Talk Amongst Them. I talked to my grandmother about my mother, and her son about my mother about her grandmother and their brother, and they say perhaps nasty things about each other. They lie, exaggerate truth so they become interchanged. Talk amongst them, deciphering secrets, hints, and whispers all make my ears bleed and my eyes cry. Playing therapist, 22 years too young. How does that make you feel? You don't deserve that, but maybe you do. I listen as they tell me their truth. But I know, yes, I know, their half-truths are lies, but their pain is true. The next piece is called Tides. This is more of like the interiority of life lessons. Tides. Sadness plagued her little heart, covering her eyes so tears fall into the crevices of palms. She wonders if anyone will ever catch her sadness for her, or if her palms will erode from the tide. Sometimes she can hear her heart whisper or whimper cries of pain, or perhaps she is just tired, weary of the world's pace. As her arms wrap around themselves, cradling an empty soul, she wonders what will cure the devastation of the loss, of a loss that was intertwined with her being. Sometimes she can feel the pain nipping at her temple, asking to return to the tide and persuading her to drown. This next one is how she learned to fly. One day, I felt like flying. Walked out of my 3-story window, opened my arms and fell, trusted my ancestors to carry me, and I flew. Watched as the world below me became small, became one with the clouds, felt as they weighed on me with their scars above the weight. The skies were clear and black and sparkled with dimming stars. It found my terror in their brightness. One day I found myself falling. Felt like the opening of my wings and allowing the wind to pass through them. Felt my stomach kiss to my spine as the wind deafened my ears and the weight of the clouds dampened my fall. The world barreled towards me, watched as people's lives and 20 stories buildings passed by. Before I could exhale, I hit the ground and blood was sucked from my bursting skin and my tears drank by my skull. Lay scattered, yet I flew. This next piece is Am I Just? This moves into sort of the next section of songs of blackbirds. It's called Am I Just? Am I just? Little black girl. Ignorant, quiet when adults are speaking. Am I just? Little Negro girl. Wide-eyed with white in the middle. Am I just minstrel, fit to dance and sing when the tone strikes? Should I just be grateful that I can see the table? Should I just be grateful? Am I just? Should I just? Am I just? Why be grateful for breeze when there is wind? Why search for light when there is sun? Am I just to forgive how little my plate is when there is a feast for all to enjoy? Should I just? This next one is Scars Taste Like Pink. Pretty little black girl. Where should you lay your head when your sun dies out? Poor little black girl. Where shall you write when your pen runs out of ink? Daily, she sings to herself in the mirror, words of wisdom and encouragement. How much power can one word hold if the world's words tell a different story? Powerless, little black girl. How shall you face yourself when the scars consume you? You barely look like yourself. Pink flesh litters your skin. No longer pretty little black girl. Poor little pink girl. They have one. This next one is perhaps. We're moving more into the political section of my poetry, which I love to do. I really love it. Perhaps is published in Hot Pot magazine. So you can read it there if you'd like. Perhaps. Smiling faces, sick with a pearly grin, ask me about politics. Tell me they can't believe it. Can't believe they voted for a man who looks just like them. I tell them I can believe it. They ask, what has changed? I sit in the silence of their question. What has changed? Nothing, I respond. I say the world keeps spinning. I watch disgust creep at their lips, watch confusion nibble at their brows. The world has never stopped, I say. Not for a knee on the neck, not for a bullet to the chest, not for a child in handcuffs. The world has never stopped, not for legs dangling from trees, not for bombs on holy ground, not for our mothers' tears. Yes, but what has changed? They asked again, their smile buried beneath their discomfort. Oh, shall the world change because it hurts you? I asked. Shall the words change because they knock at your door? Shall the world change because they want more now? Shall the world change because they nipped at your neck? No, I say. My world has not changed. But perhaps if yours had earlier, it would have. My grandmother's memory. My grandmother's memory. I've never seen cotton up close, yet blood seeps from my fingers. It is so faint, a memory of a before, on Sundays where church whites and pick-a-nigger reds have become the same, footsteps haunt, heel fields where big houses and American flags dream. As blood falls, stains pure cotton and white funeral whites on the now. My grandmother wears black, and so does hers, and so does hers. It's one of my favorite poems. It's very small, but it's a short one. It's called This is a Metaphor. This is a metaphor. Rows of cotton, flipped through like pages of a magazine, grows like the weed, kissing on the edges of death. In the daylight, pure sparkles in its rays, the brown barbs uplift them, like a good metaphor for America. This next piece is called Burdensome Stone or Burden S Tone. It's published in the Amistad, I believe. It's one of those family stories that gets a little bit twisted, so stick with it, please. Burdensome Stone. Poetically, I feel the weight of words on paper, heavy like marble resting on your chest. As I talk, I write around myself, a swiveling symphony of words, all of which avoid, and then it sinks. I sink within myself, feeling the weight of words on paper, heavier than black bodies being carried down to their graves, and this weight of words suffocates me. I must act, sing, dance, write, read, perform within this weight. One day, my grandmother told me my great-great-grandfather was Lynch. Breath caught in my throat, a true dealing of cards that I did not know were so close, yet so removed. It was just as it was. He was lynched. He worked on the railroads, caused some trouble. Perhaps he was a drunk, or maybe he touched a white woman the wrong way at the right time, or maybe he had debts, yet stashed money in his pockets. But she said it. She said it like it was his fault, like the family knew. My grandmother and her grandmother knew it was his fault. He had brought this weight upon himself. And when he could no longer breathe underneath the stone that sat on his chest, it was on him. The burden too big for his hands, too choking for his throat. Yes, too burdensome to uphold. Yes, it was his fault. It must have been. And so when I feel the weight of words on paper, in attempts to write what the mind can't hold, what the breath can't speak, what the hands can't carry, I remember as a little black girl, I deal in burdens. I must too carry, or it will be my fault when I am lynched. This next section. So essentially, I've been working on a collection, not section, a novel based in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the genocide going on there. And I was deciding on if I should add poetry to the novel itself. I wrote maybe 3 or 4 poems, which I'll perform for you guys now. Let me know how it is. Cobalt tinted lashes. Hands tinted in a burdensome blue, small yet blisters poking palms, reminiscent of starry nights, the first time you bled gold. Child, your fingers should have been soft, with hints of crayon at their tips, learning how to write your name before you learn how to pluck beads of color for your family to eat. Child, step into the oasis and allow the darkness in which you work to become your only light. For the riches of your land, to be held by a man in western winds. Child, you know this ground. You've lived in it, within it since you could breathe, but now you breathe out dust, lungs coated in that burdensome blue because they have stolen your life. Not the man in the uniform, nor the man above him, or the man above him, but the Reds have decided you must breathe burdensome blues to power the whites. This next one is I think of war. I think of war sometimes, of what happens when a bomb drops onto someone's front lawn, one with plastic porch chairs and cigarette butts and beer cans. What is lost in that moment? Fruit flies sitting in the sink, she swats them. A favorite spoon, small yet round with a smoothness, a set of front keys to the front door and a lock with a catch to a place that no longer has one. I think of war, of the pain when shrapnel and fire graces your skin, of evaporating rain as flame embraces air, of final goodbyes and kisses on cheeks that are now hollow, or of the last thoughts. If death comes without a whimper or a cry, if you can feel it when it has been decided that it is your turn, I think of war. I think of war sometimes. This is my last poem. It's called Death Colored In. I appreciate this poem. So, yeah. Death Colored In. If you look at your feet, look, you shall see a mine tucked carefully underneath, brown dust turned red clay, and a cross lined with gold, because there's genocide in Congo. Returns to them, death colored in, yes, there's genocide in Congo. Not along the riverbank, but in the eyes, bloodshot red with lashes lined blue. Yes, people lay slaughtered in the streets. Yes, people forget their homes and search for a place where that mind cannot go off. Yes, there is genocide in Congo. Yes, there is genocide in Congo. Yes, young boys are kidnapped, forced to fight for a war whiteness started. Yes, young women are raped for a war whiteness started. Yes, young children are enslaved for a war whiteness started. Yes, there is genocide in Congo. Yes, there is genocide in Congo. Yes, there is genocide in Congo. But in front of you, there is a mine. Look, with brown dust turned red clay and a golden cross with a pale Jesus. And you wonder when it will go off. But if you look around you, you will see it already has. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Thandiwe, that was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing those pieces with us. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that those final pieces that you asked about are incredible. I hope they find their way into the pages of the book.
I hope so too.
Hey, y'all. I see y'all out there in the little Zoom room. You're sitting there, you're listening to incredible poetry, and you're thinking, gosh, I wish I could ask a question to the poets. Well, little did you know, after the next reading, we will have a Q&A. And I hope that you write down your questions to ask yourself, or you can throw them in the chat and I will ask poets on your behalf, but do not think that you'll remember. For I have had this happen to me too many times. You will get caught up in the beautiful poetry to come and you will forget your question. So go ahead and write it down and get ready because we have our final poet for the night, Kyla-Yến Giffin, a queer and trans biracial Vietnamese American diaspora writer whose work revolves around themes of dreaming, fantasizing, and futurizing, and focuses on topics of diaspora, transness, ecology, empire, and intergenerational histories. They are a press editor for Half Mystic Press, a co-coordinator for Sundress Publications' Poets in Pajamas reading series, and an associate editor for Iron Horse Literary Review. Kyla-Yén's work has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, and Best Small Fictions, and has appeared in The Offing, Ouroboros, Fifth Wheel Press, Vanguard, and other publications. They have been awarded residencies, workshops, and/or fellowships from Tin House, the Sundress Academy for the Arts, Seventh Wave, Adobe Press, and more. You can visit Kyla-Yén's author page at Kyla-Yén and find them on Instagram at Yin Shrine. Kyla-Yén.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aslan. Yeah, really happy to be here and reading with you guys. Thandiwe, absolutely loved your reading so much. So the poems that I will be reading tonight, it's a mix of both published and to be published poems that aren't out yet. And they are also part of a collection in progress that I am currently curating. So this first poem is called Parisian Wine, and it was published by Table Conversation in their July 2025 monthly catalog. Parisian Wine. We're 17 in Paris. We stop by the last open street corner liquor store for a bottle of wine. We get back to our hotel room and realize we forgot a bottle opener. We Google all the ways you can open a wine bottle without a corkscrew. We try the table, the radiator, the blow dryer for an hour, maybe hours, drunk already off the absurdity of the task. Finally, we try a pen. Dig at the cork with the nib until it's bloodied with ink, until it falls apart and the grains plummet into the bottle. The bottle is open, but now there's ink in our wine. By this time, the thrill is gone, the thirst for wine evaporated. The midnight air drifting in from the balcony is lulling us into nullity. I take a swig, just to know how it tastes, just to not waste it. It's not that great. It tastes like a prophecy. Like tomorrow, you'll hold out your hand to me from on top of a cage. Promise me you'll pull me out. Tell me to grab a hold of you and let go of the bars. Then drop me and run away as I lay gasping, back against the metal. But that's probably just the notes of chalk. It's a betrayal, how disappointing the flavor is. The rest of the bottle spoils in the mini fridge. You fall soundly asleep, calm and unyielding and clear as the limestone encasing us. I toss and turn, wet my mouth, try so hard to get rid of the grit lingering at the back of my throat. This next one is called A Bird versus a Falling Knife, and it was originally published by Death Rattle Literary in Ouroboros, Volume 11. This is A Bird versus a Falling Knife. At 4 a.m., the constant cascading cackle of a bird at some near distance is enough to drive me insane. I panic at the sound as if it's an alarm, as if its vocal exhaustion from the incessant noise-making could become my own, as if the bird is crying out to me to do something and I'm too afraid to listen. I learned from my father to never try to catch a falling knife. He did that once and nearly sliced his thumb off. So I don't catch the knife, so I watch it fall. And when it clatters on the floor, its rattle left ringing through my skull like a bird crying out while being killed. I don't pick it up. I say later. I say not now. I'm trying to write a better world, and I'm terrified to write beyond the first chapter. If I start writing, I might accidentally write about what really hurts, what I truly want, what actually matters. I tell myself there's time, but I'm not so sure. Say I caught the knife. Say my thumb was sliced. But I let it be. I let it bleed. It'll pass. It must. I don't go to the doctor. I don't want more debt. I don't have time. I don't want to know how bad it really is. I finally fall asleep, and when I open my eyes and ears again in the middle of the day, the bird is mute, or maybe dead. Maybe the knife in falling, in my not catching it, killed the bird. And if it's quiet, if it's murdered, I can wake up now. I pull the blanket over my head. I say, later. I say, not now. I tell myself there's time. There has to be. Thank you. And next up, I have Mudslide, which is to be published by Wild Roof Journal next year. Mudslide. Wish the earth would pull me back into bed. Want to fold against the mud and worms and roots like arms. Want to let them reshape me. It's so cold on the surface, but deep under it be warm. She said I'd be back on the waste, but I won't return until it agrees to swallow me whole. Not sure if I can handle being a person. Dirt made out of a body. Brown-blooded, bulldozing. Muddy, eroding face pressing against the glass. Dreaming of kissing you. Dreaming of killing. Dreaming of friendly ghosts and wretched blooms. Dreaming of being eaten alive, 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 or dead. Pasteurized, fermented, dried, frozen, canned, rotting, moldy, fed. The only thing I know about being human is it's common for a birth to happen after a death in the family. The only thing I know is I've never seen a grave on the beach. The sand is always running away. The only thing I know how to do is wake up, put in my contacts, look out the window, pick my skin, wash my hands, brush my teeth, ruffle my hair, scratch my neck, feed my cat, wash my hands, sit down, peel my arms, write my emails, eat a wall, eat my stomach, wash my hands. Wonder what kind of dirt I would have been. Wonder what kind of body this could have been. Wonder what kind of man I would have been. Wonder what kind of land this could have been. Thank you. This next one was published by the Amazon, and it's called Clay Figures. The snow falls, but it doesn't land. The roads scream when I drive over them. Birds waltz over power lines and take dust baths in the ground-up concrete. I grow a plant indoors that knows nothing of how much of the earth is no longer alive. This world so rarely makes sense. Surely we're all just pretending to understand it. Surely we're all just acting as if we've got it under control. Every December, my family and I would unpack our mini ceramic town and lay its pieces out on the chest and switch on all the moving parts and lights, and it would be Christmas time. Where did the townspeople go off to sleep? Didn't they get tired? Where did they go when we packed their town away? Who got custody of them after we all left? I am angry. I am so angry still. How do you expect me to explain what I want? I thought I knew. I really did. I was trained in wanting, I descended from yearning. I was carved out of desires. But when I first uncoil in the mornings to find my cat crying to be let out of my room, or the garbage truck stopping by, or the phone ringing, or a fire alarm going off, or a storm sounding, or you draped over me and drooling on the pillow, I don't want something noble or romantic or unique. I just want more sleep. I asked you once if you believe you're a good person. You paused, then said, I think I'm better than I am worse. As for me, I think I'm more likely equal parts. I'm not a saint. I'm just a person who used to be a kid that was expected to be an angel, just a kid who wanted to be a bird instead, just a person who ended up nothing more than a down feather anyway. They say the world could end in my lifetime, but I want to grow old so badly. I want more time with my clay, but I'm afraid I'll never be able to build the things I want to. I want more time with you and the bands of quartz that line the earth of your chest. I want to know if the snow will ever land, if the roads will ever stop screaming, if the birds will ever escape industrialization, if the earth will ever be more alive than dead, if this world will ever make sense. I want to wake up and want more than just sleep. Please tell me this is not too much to want. Please tell me it's okay to want this. Please tell me that I can be angry still. Thank you. And this next one is also to be published by Anomalous Press in their next issue of Anomaly. And it is called The Corpse of America is Buried in Upstate New York. The house across the street is holding a garage sale, and I open the front door so my cat can people watch through the screen while I wash the dishes. While the sun weeps through the kitchen window and reveals my skin to be all pinks and blues. The evangelicals say the apocalypse is today. So I cut my mother's bangs when she asks me to, because her hairstylist is too afraid. And I go to the pharmacy to get my flu shot, but my insurance won't cover it. And I forget to eat lunch while my mother remembers to fill her shrines with fruit. One day, maybe they'll go hungry too. The world is ending, and there's a beaver in the Hannaford parking lot and a spider shell on the window pane, and my mother, gutting an orange, filling the peel with cooking oil, and lighting it on fire. Outside, the garage sale goes up in flames and smells like cigarettes, and I remember my grandfather. The neighbor's son hops a burning fence to save a blue jay. His father is gentle with both of them, just this once. He saves them both, just this once. Then he scorches his son with, "How long do you need me to hold your fucking hand?" And his son hops a fence again, searching for another blue jay. His father stands leaning over the railing of their back porch, merging with charred earth and orange sky, and wonders why he didn't hop the fence with him. Then the sun is gone, and the father is gone, and the earth and sky are gone, and do you notice how night never looks as dark as it should anymore? How the rain hits the roof in a different rhythm than it did before? It's past midnight, and the neighborhood is still smoking, but I'm still standing at the kitchen sink, the water running so I forget how the rain doesn't sound anymore, how it's supposed to sound. The lights off so I remember how I'm just shades of pink and blue. Do I not have plum skin? Does it not bruise easily? Yes, I do, and yes, it does. So today, as the last fruit in the country, I feed myself to Kwanam at my mother's altar. Knife aimed at the stone, I beg my mother, I don't want to have to be a daughter. She ripens. You don't have to be a daughter. Thank you. This next one was recently published by Moss Puppy magazine and nominated for a Pushcart, and it's called Firecracker. Today I looked outside and saw smoke and thought everything was on fire. But it wasn't smoke. It was just morning frost on the roofs of cars and houses evaporating. Evaporating can't be the right word because it means to stop being visible, and the steam was so palpable, so desperately visual. I thought, why is the fire so quiet? What's the point of a fire on a sunny day? What's the point of a firecracker when the bombs are dropping? Adding more substance when there's already so much light in our eyes and smoke in our lungs and ringing in our ears. There's a point. There's a point to it, I promise. Today, the disposable lighter you gave me ran out of fluid, and I had to use my matchbox to light the candles that are making me feel safe and warm again. I pulled out a match, but it was actually 2 matches attached at the head. I struck them, they burned, they fell apart, and it's yet another divine metaphor where more and more of me is letting go of more and more of you. Why does letting go have to happen like a bomb hitting? When it's not just the explosion, but the scattering of shrapnel and the chronic release of blistering energy long after the explosion is over. Why is the final line never the final line? I don't know, I hate it, but it's fine, because I'm lighting a candle even without your lighter, and I'm writing poetry even without you reading it, and I'm loving even without you here. Tell me, what's the point of a firecracker when the bombs are dropping? The point is that a firecracker is not a bomb, and it might be smaller and quieter and weaker, but its desire despite the loss, and its dream despite the memory, and its love despite the grief. And it was just frost, but I thought it was a fire, and that's all that matters. Thank you. And the last one I have was originally published by the Trident Poetry Collective, which is like a small poetry group in Boston, in their chapbook called Outside Voices. The poem is titled, "My partner asked me if I could carve something onto my bones to leave behind for future anthropologists to find what would be written on them." Skull. If you enter the Livermore Valley from the west and travel inland along the freeway toward Altamont Pass, you'll come across a back road on the left that cuts the houses off and routes the Golden Hills. Follow the road a mile down, and on the right will be a wide scrape of clay and dry grass where there's supposed to be a lake. When I was a kid, and a few damper years would occasionally break the drought, I'd bike this road and turn to watch gulls flock into and out of the lake, like little white clouds dropping out of one sky and into another. I always thought the lake was an accident. It took me 10 years to learn it was meant to be there. I loved biking this road, and I loved no gold more than that of my hills, but I hope they're green now. I hope the lake is back. I hope the gulls have 2 skies again. Clavicles. My mother used to tell me a story about Vietnam and our resilience, how the craters of bombs dropped by the US eventually filled up with groundwater and rain after the war, and village farmers began using them to grow fish. Sternum. I wonder if these fish tasted like the ruins of empire. Scapulas. What those who drop bombs can't understand is land can swallow bombs and chew up and digest them and remember them and birth a spirit much stronger than a bomb and create a pond never meant to be a pond. Ribs. A confession. In the backyard of the house my parents and I lived in between 2010 and 2019, I once found the biggest roly-poly I'd ever seen. I took it into my room and made it a home in a bin filled with dirt and plucked plants. But the roly-poly was a mother, and suddenly hundreds of babies had materialized from her and they all died. I buried this mother and her children in the backyard between the lavender bushes and the walking stick tree, in a grave never meant to be a grave. Carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. A thing I want to be remembered for. That one September day, I picked up a dying squirrel from the road where it'd been hit and cradled it in my jacket, then laid it to rest beneath a pile of leaves near a reservoir. Vertebrae. I dreamt I lived in a house that had a pond with the power to keep everything inside it alive. Femurs. If you make your way from Manchester by the sea toward Essex, on a road that carves through the woods, you'll pass a farm store on the right and cross the unseen border between the two cities, then discover a swamp to the left. Follow the trail into it, and a wooden bridge partially blocked by a large boulder will appear on your right. The bridge is long, and every foot of it's lined with wild blueberries. When I was 22, I walked this bridge with my coworkers when we were supposed to be on our way to a networking event. We slowed down to forage for and feast on blueberries while soaking in the glory of the wetland. Patellas. I felt then that maybe the world wasn't meant to be anything at all. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so, so much for that reading. Oh, well, I was going to say more, but that goes into Q&A stuff. So this concludes our reading for the night, and we will now shift into the second half where we talk to the poets. If you have a question that you would like to ask Thandiwe or Kyla-Yến, please throw it in the chat or raise your hand using the little raise hand function, and you can ask yourself. In the meantime, while you do some thinking, I would love to get started with a question I always love to ask, which is when you find yourself sitting at the page, this is to both of you, um, and you pick up your pen or you start typing, do you find that it comes from a place of form, a place of content, or a place of occasion? This is something that was posed by Charles Jensen in this Poets in Pajamas reading series last year or 2 years ago. And I've thought about it ever since, and I'm very curious what y'all have to say about that as being a kind of a triangle of creativity, or if you're constantly shifting around and finding maybe fourth or fifth unknown things to write from. Maybe we start with Kyla-Yến.
Yeah, it was form, content, and occasion. Was that what it was? Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like they all intersect a lot for me. I I would say that occasion and observation. I think that observation is kind of a fourth one that I'm drawn to a lot. But I feel that those two bring me to the page. And that I find that when I go to write a piece, its form is kind of inherent to it. I never try to push a form onto a piece, but it just takes the form that it's meant to. Um, so yeah, I would say that that's how it works for me. But definitely, I would say that the fourth, like one of my creation observation, is what really brings me to the page first and foremost.
Um, for me, I agree with Kylie-Yen that form should never be forced. In fact, everything that I mean, every poem that I've written is always free verse. I used to write like little haikus in school and stuff, but I found that those were not the best outlets for me. But I definitely feel like content and occasion are what draws me to the page the most. I often find myself writing about the interior and the psychological meaning behind content. So if I'm thinking about, okay, genocide, and then I want to put myself inside of the brain of someone who's experiencing that. So it's more about content and then what's like directly behind that.
Yeah, I love both of those answers. And I think that it's right that you can't exactly like isolate it to be like, oh, like today I am writing from a place of form. But I like that Kyla-Yen, you mentioned that observation maybe being a bit of a tangent to occasion. And I think that that is so true as well, especially in the ways that it can relate to content like uh, becoming aware, becoming a witness to genocide, as Thandiwe was speaking to. Um, Thank you both for those answers. And I have another question for both of you that is a little long and unwieldy, but bear with me. Both of your pieces deal, I mean, not the pieces, both of your readings and your pieces that are lovely and can be found online so many places and at both of your websites um, deal with this personal narrative in a very lyric prose style that also always feels political. And this is something that I think a lot of undergraduate programs all over the country are always talking about. Is there such a thing as a non-political poem? But I think here we know that we are kind of speaking to a different thing when we are writing and reading and feeling into very specific things that are happening in the world. And the tradition of this goes back to some of the greats like Maya Angelou and Bertolt Brecht. And then, both of your readings reminded me so much today of like the work of Mei Buschenbrugge, Hello the Flowers, or Jing Chang's In the Roar of the Machine. Like I am experiencing these things. I see these things. I write about it, but it's not just like a short story or a little memoir piece. There is something uniquely poem about the feel. And I'm curious if y'all would like to meditate a little bit on how you engage with incorporating history, personal narrative, what is often said archive of yourself, of your surroundings, and how that filters into politics, wanting to write into something, wanting to write toward something. Because I imagine everyone in this Zoom and everyone listening online here and forevermore know what it feels like to feel so small and to want to speak to something. And I feel like both of you have such an incredible talent at grounding that desire in personal narrative, in archive, or ecology, in or language. God forbid, just language itself. So that is my long and winding question. If you have any thoughts that stir from that, Thandiwe, maybe we start with you.
Yeah, I remember from when I was in college, I read a lot of Gil Scott-Heron, who's both a musician and a poet, and a bunch of other things as well. He was very multifaceted. And what drew me to his work essentially is that it's storytelling with the underlying theme of politics. So one of his songs, Home is Where the Hatred Is, I want to say. It deals with someone who's a drug addict, but he's also kind of dealing with the socio-political issues of his time period, 1970s and 80s. That's what Ronald Reagan's era with the war on crime or the war on drugs. Um, and so when I'm thinking about politics and when I'm thinking about storytelling, I think that there is an inherent level of politics in my personal story and in my lineage of stories. So when I'm thinking about what I've been through, what my family's been through, or any stories that I've heard, I'm thinking about both the socio-political aspects of it and also the emotional and psychological aspect of it, which I think also Gil Scott-Heron does a lot of as well. So that answers the question, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, so for me, I always say that when it comes to being a writer, everything that I do and am in my life is a part of my writing. And I also say that I'm a writer because of like all the various facets of who I am. I'm a writer because I'm queer. I'm a writer because I'm Vietnamese American. I'm a writer because I experience, the effects of like colonialism and capitalism and war firsthand. And so none of that I find is ever inseparable from my writing. And I also firmly believe that uh, writing, for one, doesn't happen in a silo. And so that whenever we are writing into a history, a lineage, and an ancestry, an archive. And I think that especially for like white writers and like white cishet writers, especially, it's easy for them to think to themselves that their writing stands completely alone and they aren't representing anything or showing any politics in their writing, but it's not true. They have their own identities and communities that they are like speaking into and writing into in their work. And so I just believe in doing that intentionally. And I also believe that there's no point in being an artist if you're only being an artist for yourself. I think that it's important to be an artist for purposes of the collective, of your communities, of the world. Because like what other reason could you have for creating art rather than doing it for everything that you care about in the world?
Clock it, serve it, remember it. I thank you so much for that answer, Kyla-Yến. I think I cannot imagine one that an answer that would stir my heart more. Thandiwe, thank you for your answer as well. We have time for a few more questions. If folks here in the Zoom room would like to ask a question to one or both of our lovely poets. If not, I'll just keep going. I can do it. But I want to give room if someone would like to raise their hand. Yes.
First, I really enjoy listening to the poems. Hi, Tandy. My question, this is, I want, I guess I want to know, like, how do you grow a poem? Like, what's like your rituals of growing a poem and then your rituals of revising a poem? Because I know sometimes, like, a poem, you can start with a little idea, but what are your own process of terms of like growing that poem out and then revising it and allowing it to live and then, share it and all those things. So that's my question.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a big proponent of fragmentation as being my process. So all of my pieces they often start out either in like a physical notebook or my notes app or something as just a collection of lines, sentences, phrases, etc. that gets built over time. And I don't really know what I'm writing toward when I begin putting those down. I just know that they mean something to me, and I can feel that they have a purpose. And eventually, over however long, sometimes maybe it's like over a week, maybe sometimes it's over like a month or multiple months. One day I will just, and these are always usually like observations about the world or my life or things like that. And then usually one day a fragment that comes to me will just be like the thing that pieces together the running thread that connects all of the fragments, and I just put them together. And yeah, I mean, it's a messy, discombobulated process. It's like putting together like a mosaic or a puzzle or something, and I'm just kind of fumbling around with the fragments to see how they fit. And yeah, and then it's really good usually for me to use a physical notebook because I will have all of the lines written out, and then when I want to piece them together into an actual poem, I will like rewrite them, I'll cross them out, I'll reorder them, all of that. I might like add or take away something here or there. But yeah, I love fragmentation. It's also how I write my prose as well. And it's something that I feel is very productive and very natural for me. And it also is just, it's also just oftentimes a more realistic way to go about writing. We can't always, sit down and write however much in one sitting. And so it's a nice way also to um, incorporate writing into lots of little moments throughout my life.
I agree with Kyla-Yến. I find that when I'm writing poetry, it does feel incredibly fragmented. I'm mostly a fiction writer. I do write essays. I mean, I write, different things, but I do mostly do fiction. So in the times where I am doing poetry, it's in between bigger pieces. I often take thoughts and ideas driven from fiction work and create that into a poem because it's a better way to express kind of the themes or kind of the emotions that I'm having around that type of piece. Um, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you so much for your question. And we have time for one more question or so. If someone has been waiting and they think, it's, is it my time to ask? And I think the answer is yes. And one question from Teresa Dixon. Thank you so much, Teresa. You guys talk a lot about your works reflecting your full identity and communities. How do you balance honoring your roots while still telling your own evolving story? What a fabulous question. Yes.
Um, that's a difficult question. What I will say is that, okay, so I've been working on MFA applications this week, and I've been writing a lot about my family lineage because that's kind of what goes to my head when they ask me to talk about a lot of these prompts, like diversity, inclusion, like what is my history? Um, and when I'm telling my own story, I find it that it's kind of congealed. I mean, it's both my mom's story and my grandmother's story and her grandmother's story. All of that comes through me and who I am as a person. So when I'm talking about my identity and my community, it's really a reflection of myself because I wouldn't be here without them. That probably doesn't fully answer the question, but that is how I feel.
Yeah, this is definitely a really great question, and it's something that I write into a lot. And for one thing, I'll say that I see my roots and origins, and I see history in general as being something that is already constantly evolving and constantly up for uh, creation. And I think that especially Western ideas of time and history have a lot of separation between past, present, and future. But that's not the case, in like a lot of other non-Western cultures. And so that's kind of what I prescribe to more. And so, for instance, I'd say that being a part of a diaspora, I see a diaspora as a constant creation. And so even though it started somewhere, it's still something that's in the making. And I think also that I see myself too as yes, having roots and those roots can change, but also as being my own roots to something. So I know that I'm also an ancestor of something. And I also see, the specific space and time and combination of identities and communities I have as being a very ephemeral space. And so I see it as like I'm holding a very unique history and a unique relationship to all of those histories. And I think that um, talking about them from my specific point of view is the best way to honor them and the best way to talk like authentically about them. And so there's just yeah, like there's no way to separate out being me as a writer and in my combination of identities and in my evolution from being queer and Vietnamese American and part of a diaspora and all of that. It's just it's very integrated, and I see it also as like who who I am like is a already like a definition and an honoring of those roots. Um, so yeah, kind of went in a lot of different directions there, but yeah.
All right, folks. Beautiful answers, beautiful questions. Thank you so much for asking that. I believe this concludes the final reading of Poets in Pajamas for 2025. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching online, thank you for watching whenever it is that you are.